Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where you'll hear ridiculous stories about people who don't give a crap about anybody else in the world, as long as they're happy. Guys, I hope you're having a great Monday today. If it's not Monday, I hope you're having a great day in general. And you know the drill. You're about to hear some ridiculously entitled stories. So sit back, grab a drink, grab a snack, because we're diving in. Oh, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for future stories. Due to a problem I had at work, I booked a flight to my conference destination really late. All that was left were middle seats, or I could pony up personally to pay for an upgrade, which wasn't gonna happen for a relatively short flight. So, out in the boarding area, they announced many times that it was a full flight, and kept begging people to check their bags. It wasn't subtle. Once we got on the plane, I could see my fate before me. A wild Karen was sitting in an aisle seat. The middle was piled up with her crap. A backpack, electronic devices, stuffed animal, and some snacks. There was also a miniature Karen. She was in the window seat, happily kicking the empty seat in front of her so hard that it was visibly shaking. Oh joy, that's definitely my seat. When I got to the row, I pointed to the middle seat to indicate that it's mine. Karen did not budge or move a single thing from that crap hinge. I tried again with the whole, I'm sorry, but that's my seat routine. She snapped at me and said, sit somewhere else. I told her, I can't do that, it's a full flight. This is my assigned seat. Well, Karen was having none of that. Did I not know what kind of day she's had? So, it all started the day before. Their flight was diverted. They missed their connection. They slept in the airport overnight. They just need a little bit of space, so I need to sit somewhere else. She then shoves her knees up full against the seat in front of her, blocking my way. She then shut her eyes and pretended to be asleep. So that's the point where I slam the flight attendant button. I then crouch in the row behind so people can get past. We had already made a scene and clogged up boarding. As I crouched there, I realized that nothing about Karen's story made sense. We weren't flying at a big city airport where flights sometimes did get diverted. We were at the tiny regional airport that only had a couple of airlines that flew to major hubs. No connections happened there. There also weren't a bunch of other people griping about missed connections, or having to sleep in the airport. Usually when that happens, everybody knows. I'm assuming Karen was lying. Anyhow, the saintly flight attendant arrived to ask what's wrong. She then checked my ticket, and yes, unfortunately, that's my seat. She then asked Karen to see her and her kids' tickets. Karen kept her eyes closed and continued to pretend to be asleep. Now, I don't know how she thought that would work, but the flight attendant shook her shoulders several times and kept speaking loudly to her. Now, you must remember that boarding is going on all around us. People were hefting bags, trying to find seats, and the usual loud mayhem. It was ridiculous. The flight attendant finally told Karen that if she didn't respond, that she was gonna have to call paramedics about an unresponsive passenger. Now that got Karen's attention. She pops up and demanded, "What do you want? I'm trying to sleep." And then she goes off on the same rant she did at me about her travel nightmare and needing the space. The flight attendant explained that this was a full flight, that all seats were booked and standby passengers were waiting for any extras, and Karen needed to let me sit. Now, this made Karen so mad that she was being separated from her baby by a stranger. The flight attendant then points out that she booked the aisle and the window seat herself, leaving that separation so she could either ask me to swap or sit in them as assigned. And this sets off another rant. So apparently some travel advice site out there says to book a window seat and an aisle seat and hope that nobody sits in the middle, so you get free space. Now, I can imagine this works on flights that aren't full, and this one was full. Karen then swears that she got the tip for how to get an extra seat free off of the airline's website, and threw quite the fit that it's not working out for her. Meanwhile, the people in the row in front arrived, and Mini Karen was still kicking away like she was at soccer practice. It was so bad that the guy in the window seat didn't even want to sit down. He leans over and asks the kid to stop kicking. Mini Karen then lets out an unholy wail of "stranger" that she apparently had been trained to do if a stranger spoke to her. So at this point, Karen turns from her screaming fit at the flight attendant to the man in the front row, immediately pointing at him and screaming, "Get this pedo off the plane, immediately!" Now, this is where the flight attendant goes from firm and reasonable to utterly brilliant. She then nods at Karen and says, We can't remove him from the flight because he hasn't done anything to your kid, but we can certainly get you two removed if you're not comfortable with your current location and situation. Gather your things. We'll see if there's upgrades available at the desk and try to get you two into better seats." It was amazing. Karen puffed up in self-importance as she gathered her now happy spawn and all their crap. She threw elbows like mad, shoving her way upstream past all the people still trying to board. Karen had heard the magic word upgrade, and she was gonna get there before it was gone. Now, I sorta cursed to myself that they were probably upgrading her to make her calm the heck down, and was not thrilled that her ridiculous display worked. The flight attendant's coworker came back to ask if I preferred the window or the aisle to my middle seat. I told her aisle, thanks. At least I got that, right? But no, it gets better. The flight attendant's coworker explained that I could relax because Karen and her kid would not be returning. There were no upgrades. It was faster and easier to get them off the flight that way than calling security. They then filled the seats with waiting standby passengers, and presumably Karen had plenty of space to sit next to her mini Karen in the terminal while waiting for the next flight. Well played, flight attendant, well played. Listen guys, that flight attendant handled that situation brilliantly. She definitely should write a book on how to get Karens off a plane, because that was executed perfectly. And about the Karen. Come on lady, you really think that closing your eyes and pretending to sleep is gonna make things go away? I only wish I was there to see Karen's face when they told her that there was not gonna be any upgrades. Oh my goodness. So, a group of 12 of us friends decided to go to dinner while on a golf trip. When we arrived at the restaurant, they weren't ready for us yet and had us go to the bar. Most of us ordered soda, and I ordered a green tea, while 4 of them ordered top shelf drinks. A lot of top shelf drinks. I mean, they were downing drinks like they were water. So after about 20 minutes, our table was ready, and we asked for the bills. Most of you know exactly where this is going. The waitress comes back with one bill and hands it to one of the drinkers, who had asked for a single bill. Now, friend 1 looks at the bill for a moment, pulls out his phone, and types something and says, "Okay everybody, your share comes out to $48 plus tip." Now listen, everybody else that wasn't drinking just looked at him, and yeah, the 4 of them ran up over $550 in drinks in under 20 minutes, and they expected everybody else to pay too. So the guy then says, "Come on, cough it up." I told him, yeah, no, I only ordered a green tea. I'm not paying $48 for a green tea. Friend 1 says, "Dude, just pay up." I tell him, forget it, my drink was only $5. So the other guys, emboldened by my response, said, "I only ordered a Sprite. I'm not paying $48 either." So now the tables have turned on the 4, with the other 8 of us refusing to split the tab. Friend number 2 turns to me and says, "Cheap ass, you should be paying for everybody else's drinks. You make way more money than the rest of us, so you should be paying for everything for everyone every time we go out, including this trip." Now, that phrase, everything for everyone every time we go out, really burned me when he said it. Why in the world would anybody think that someone else should be paying for everything for everyone? Now, I did make a good living, but that was about it. The kicker is, one of our friends did make a lot of money, and everybody knew about it, and he was even there with us. I then tell him, "Screw you, I'm not paying $48 for a glass of tea." Now, most of you won't believe this part, which is fine, for it's completely unbelievable. If it didn't happen to me, I wouldn't believe it either. Friend 2 gets his wife on the phone and puts her on speakerphone. He tells her that I won't split everybody else's drink bill, and she proceeds to tell me off over speakerphone to everybody. Now, I don't remember exactly everything she said because it was so ridiculous and I was fuming. I do, however, remember her parroting how I should be paying for everything, so they were obviously talking about that sentiment before. Eventually, I dropped this little gem on her. I said, "If I wanted a bunch of people to leech off my wallet, I would have had a bunch of kids. You two are the cheapest people I know." I followed this by a few examples of just how cheap they were and how they took advantage of friends. This leaves the wife speechless. Now, I don't remember exactly what she said, but I do remember it being more drivel and entitled. I did eventually say F you, which was totally called for. Now, this is another part of the story that most people will not believe, which is fine. She then says, "Don't cuss at me again, or I'm gonna hang up." Now just imagine the mentality of someone giving you this threat in this situation and thinking it would carry any weight. I told her, "Go ahead and hang up, I didn't call you." I looked at friend number 2, threw down a few bucks on one of the tables, and walked towards the waitress. I was done with that whole scene, and so was everyone else. I have no idea what further conversation went on back there, but most of the other guys came to the table shortly thereafter, except the drinkers, which I'm sure were trying to figure out how to pay for their bill. So, the aftermath. Yes, we did sit at different tables for dinner. The drinkers got their own table. The rest of us sat at another table. We didn't talk about what happened, for I think we were still confused by it all. We did finish our trip, although the dynamics changed as well after we got home. The drinkers kinda hung out by themselves. After that trip, we did go on one final Vegas trip with the whole group, and the best part is, the friend number 2 got rolled by a pair of hookers to the tune of $700 on the first night there. I'm sure you can figure that one out. He then changed his flight and went home that night. Neither friend number 2 nor his wife have spoken with anybody in our group for years. Last I heard, he cashed in every dollar of his savings and retirement to buy a bigger and better house than the rest of us, to furnish it with everything his wife wanted. Within a few years, they had to sell that house and move back in with his parents. And yes, I did drink that green tea. Now, my friends, I've been there before and I can never understand it. It's always unfair for the person who eats the least, or in this case, drinks the least, to help chip in and pay for the whole tab. And the fact that the friend threw a fit over that because OP makes good money, yeah, I don't know. It sounds like that guy is definitely jealous of OP's income, seeing as how he had to buy a bigger and better house than everybody else to prove himself. So, this happened to me about a year ago. I was out of town for work for 3 weeks and having a great time, while everything back home was seemingly going down the drain. My mom was spiraling downward from alcohol addiction, but that's a different story. This only matters because it so happened that I was letting my stepbrother live at my house, free of charge, while he figured things out. Well, the breakup between my dad and his mom happened while I was out of town, and he decided it would be best to move out. We had this neighbor who we played music with. He lived about 6 houses down from me and was a talented guitarist. Stepbrother was also a talented guitarist, so that guy was around a lot as they often jammed together. I had known him about a year, and he seemed nice enough and relatively not so bad of a character, or so I thought. So this is how the story unfolds. Stepbrother is moving out the last week that I'm heading to Denver, maybe Monday or Tuesday of that week, and he asked our neighbor to help move the boxes, and by Wednesday, they're done moving him out. Well, since I'm in the mountains and not getting great cell reception, I'm not able to keep a close eye on my cameras, and this is where it gets good. So, I get a notification Wednesday night that my bedroom camera is offline. I try to look at the last footage captures, but the cell service is so bad that after 5 minutes of trying to let it buffer, I gave up. Saturday rolls around and my friend, who's been feeding my cats, asks if there was a reason my back door should be unlocked. Now, I immediately go into panic mode and think back to my camera going offline on Wednesday. I was finally at a place with Wi-Fi and was able to check my camera. Now, I still have nightmares about this. The first thing I see is my neighbor opening the door to my bedroom and starting to have a look around. I saw this creep spend 10 minutes going through every drawer and both closets in my room. He went through my underwear drawer, pulling out all of my underwear and taking a look at it all. He even put a few up to his face and then took a nice expensive pair and stuffed it into his shorts pocket. I know, it's gross. He knew that nobody was home and that I was going to be gone for several days, so he took his sweet time. After going through my closet for a really long time, I then see him leave the room and head for the kitchen. He then rummages through my fridge and cooks a full dinner for himself. He then comes back to cook more food a little over an hour later, after soaking in my hot tub. This time, he's munching on some crackers that he surely got from my pantry, and leisurely jaunting around my house just looking at things. A few minutes into this, he begins to look at the shelf mounted in the corner above my dresser. Now, this shelf has a few random things on it, as well as the Nest Cam that's partially hidden in a clock. The lens is still noticeable if you're paying attention. Well, this caught his eye as he scanned across the shelf, and he had a literal jaw drop. This screenshot is probably my favorite picture I have. He immediately picks it up and unplugs the camera, explaining why my camera had gone offline. I then see him going outside to where my hot tub is, frantically looking around for my cameras outside. I had hidden them high up in a tree. He didn't see it, but I saw him. Unfortunately for him, Nest Cams record to the cloud. So now, I'm in the position of being across the country, knowing what happened and weighing my options. Honestly, I'm glad I had those several days to make it back. Otherwise, I would have done something stupid that could have gotten me in trouble. I was absolutely livid enough to do anything. I figured that not only am I gonna go to the police, I wanted to hatch another plan. I have the whole video of him going through my room, so I download it, make it a little shorter, edit out the parts of him finding my stash of toys and laughing to himself, and putting it together with the parts where he put my undies to his face and pocketing one. I then post it to Facebook. Now, I was still friends with him at this point on Facebook, so I waited until about 2 or 3 a.m. until I knew he was passed out from getting drunk, as he did almost every night, and tagged him in the video. I knew he wouldn't get up until noon the next day, so this fire will be a slow burn. Well, the next day, I woke up to almost 100 comments on his Facebook video, with my neighbor nowhere in sight in the comments. He called me later that day apologizing, asking me if I could take the video down, making all these excuses of how he has a problem with stealing things, and even came by to give me my stuff back. I told him to go screw himself. He ended up not renewing his lease on the house a few months later, and who cares where he went? Yikes, guys. That's a little bit more creepy than Entitled. Trust is definitely thrown out the window at this point. And I do wonder what happened when OP took this evidence to the police though. I can't imagine it ended well for that guy. I also wonder how long he would have planned to come back for and do this for if he didn't see the Nest Cam in her bedroom. Some people get a little bit nutso if given the opportunity. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/Entitled People. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today, and if you did and you're not subscribed, do hit that subscribe button. If you missed the last episode of r/Entitled People, I'll link it right here. A 75-year-old Karen demands OP pressure wash her driveway. And trust me, it gets so much worse. It gets so much worse. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.